welcome to Unit 6, the French Revolution. This is probably one of my favorite units that we do all year long. I know I say that about almost all of the units, but I really like this one. There's a lot that happens, some really cool causes and effects, and we get to see where people start to take those Enlightenment ideas and they start to really fight for them, and they start to fight for themselves. So let's get on into see what France was like. A little bit of background knowledge before we get going, just before we jump into revolution. This is probably my favorite political cartoon about the French Revolution, and I love it because it perfectly captures what life was like before the revolution. The period in France before the revolution is called the Old Regime. That's what goes in the parentheses in your notes. French society was set up as 3 estates, and they really were called the First Estate, the Second Estate, and the Third Estate. The First Estate consisted of clergy. Now, these were the men with the most power, but they had the smallest percentage of the population. And by smallest, I mean less than 1% of the population, of the total population. They seldom paid any taxes, and what taxes they did pay, it was very, very minimal. What they do, though, however, is collect the tithes or the monetary offerings to the church from the Third Estate. The Second Estate was made up of the nobles. Now, these folks made up a whopping 2% of the total population. They paid no taxes at all, and they either inherited land or they outright owned it, meaning that they had enough money to buy their own land. They are kind enough, however, to let the Third Estate live on some of their lands, but this is not out of the goodness of their hearts. They charged rent for letting them live on the land. So this brings us to our Third Estate. This estate has all the rest of the population, so that's what, like 97%? Take a minute and let that sink in. 97% of a total population of France is in this group, this one estate. Why so many people? Well, this estate contains the bourgeoisie, which is French for middle class. But it also contains the lowest class of people, the peasants, as well. Folks who were in the Third Estate got hit pretty hard because not only did they pay taxes to the government, they also paid rent to the Second Estate, the landowners, as well as paying a tithe of 10% to the church. So the people who were making the least amount of money were paying the highest amount of taxes. And I love this graphic because it gives you a true visual of how many people truly were in the Third Estate. You see your 1% represented by the 1 clergy, your 2% by the nobles, the 2 nobles. In that Third Estate, there were 97 people there, okay? So think about that for a second. How do you think these folks are feeling? How would you have felt if it had been you and your family? What would you do? Unfortunately, having the poorest people in the nation pay the biggest amount of taxes is not the only problem that France has going on in the mid-1700s. Folks were getting pretty unhappy and disgruntled. One issue was population growth. So families were growing and had more mouths to feed and to support. Okay, well, you can probably see how that might be a problem, but it really doesn't seem that bad, right? Well, remember that they also pay rent to the First and Second Estates. Now the rent is going to be raised. So the people who were already paying out the most of their income then had to pay out more money for their houses and the land that they were living on. As if having a bigger family to take care of and higher rent prices weren't bad enough, the cost of food increased as well. The fall harvest of 1787 and 1788 had been especially poor ones. And on top of that, the winter was a very harsh winter. Naturally, everyone was affected, but the group that was affected the most was the Third Estate. And this placed a huge burden on the Third Estate because remember, they have larger families to take care of now. Of course, the Third Estate wasn't feeling much love for the First and Second Estate. For one thing, the Third Estate was the only estate paying any sort of real taxes. The people, I know I've said it a million times, but the people with the least amount of money were paying out the largest amount of taxes. Another reason why the Third Estate resented the other estate was that the First and Second Estates just didn't feel the effects of the high food prices and poor harvests just like the Third Estate did. It just wasn't the same. Rent prices certainly didn't bother the second estates or the first estate. So the poor, and in this case, I literally mean the poor third estate, is just getting hit with one bad deal after another. Finally, the bourgeoisie. Remember that this is France's middle class. Well, they decided that they want more. They wanted to be the same kind of privileges. They wanted to be treated the same way and have the same kind of privileges that the second estate had. And here's why. They want to have freedom from taxes, and they want to have their sons have the same sort of important positions in the church and in the army as well. So, who's in charge in France at this point in time? When we left France last time, Louis XIV was king, and we know that he lived a very extravagant lifestyle. He built the Palace of Versailles to demonstrate his power and to keep the nobles close to him. After he dies, his great-grandson, Louis XV, ruled France from 1715 to 1774. He was 5 years old when he took over the throne. He didn't literally rule from the throne when he was 5. They waited until he was of age, and then he took over. But he doesn't really pay much attention to the fact that he inherited all this debt from Louis XIV. He doesn't pay any attention to that, and he continues to put France into debt even more. He also spent excessive amounts of money and borrowed money. And overall, he was a very ineffective ruler. After Louis XV died, his grandson, Louis XVI took over, and he ruled from 1774 to 1793. He was married to Marie Antoinette. Okay, there they are together, who was from Austria. Louis XVI married her when she was 14 years old with the hopes of forming an alliance between France and Austria. When she was 19 years old, she became the Queen of France. And the French people did not like Marie Antoinette at all. At all. Like from the very beginning, they did not like her. She was a big spender during a time of debt. It also didn't help that she liked to play cards and to gamble. She was a terrible gambler. So she cost the country money as well. So Marie Antoinette became the symbol of excess in the monarchy to the French, and she ended up helping provoke the unrest in France, which ultimately led to the French Revolution. Just a side note for just a minute about Marie Antoinette. If you like podcasts, there is a podcast called Stuff You Missed in History Class. They have some pretty interesting stories, kind of some backstories behind a lot of the things that we talk about. One of my favorite podcasts of theirs is about Marie Antoinette's hairdresser. And he was just kind of a character. Starts off in Paris. I don't want to ruin it for you. But anyway, you should check it out if you like listening to podcasts and that sort of thing. I think it's a 2-part podcast, but it's not very long, just something fun to listen to. It talks about how he became her hairdresser and how she really did influence so many of the women who wanted to spend all this big money on all the hair. She had the craziest hairstyles. I mean, if you research it yourself, it's amazing. She had a ship, like a model ship, in her hair in one of them. Some of the things that she had in her hair was just, you won't believe. It's hard to believe. So anyway, Stuff You Missed in History Class. If you like listening to those sorts of things, like if you're on road trips or whatever, highly recommend it. They have some really interesting stuff. And if you ask me about it in class, I can tell you the guy's name. It's just slipping my mind right now. So Marie Antoinette ultimately leads to the French Revolution because of her big spending. She is a big contributor to that. Well, Louis XVI ended up increasing the debt of France by assisting American colonists during the American Revolutionary War. In an effort to raise the money lost in that effort, Louis XVI decided that he was going to tax the first and second estates. Well, I'm sure you can imagine how well that went over. So all of a sudden, he's just going to start charging taxes on people who have never had to pay taxes a day in their life. Not going to go over so well. All right, so just a really quick recap. There were 3 estates in France at this time. Two were well-to-do and didn't pay taxes. The other was middle class or poor and were taxed heavily. France is in debt thanks to Louis XIV and is going further into debt thanks to rulers who continuously spend money. All right, next video, we are going to be looking at some of the events of the revolution, or some of the causes of the revolution, to see what happens there. So, see you then.